Welcome to Chik, the podcast where the girl with many titles talks about life, the good and the bad, and everything around it. We're going to sit, chat, share life stories and experiences, from business to relationship. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Chik podcast. I am Chikumo and today I'm joined by Lynn.
Hello.
Thanks so much for joining me.
It is my pleasure. I feel really happy to be here.
Oh, me too. I was just saying to Lynn before we got on that I'm having a nightmare of a day. So if I start crying, especially because there's so much I feel like I know about you that I'm gonna have to remind myself to take it a step back, get you to explain some bits, and then get into it. Because honestly, I watch your TikToks like I watch more than I even watch TV right now. It's like TV.
Stop it.
I swear to God. Do you notice this the other day as well? Because I was talking about something that you put up and you were talking about you and Pat. And I was like, I'm just here going, oh yeah, Lynn and Pat, look. And she's like, this is so weird. And he'd walked out at one point as well when we were watching TV and was like, oh, because he normally likes putting YouTube on. Yeah. And he'd pause it and said, oh, you can watch whatever else you want. And then he walked in and was like, why are you not watching TV? I was like, I am.
Oh my God. Okay, well, this gives me a lot of motivation to make more content. Because sometimes I'm like, too much. But yeah.
No, do it. Okay, so yeah, we'll let you introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do? Where are you based?
Okay, so I'm Lynn, and yeah, I'm based in Canada at the moment. But as you can tell probably from my accent, I'm from the UK, or from Zimbabwe, then the UK. And yeah, it's when you asked me to introduce myself on paper the other day, it was so hard for me because I was like, who am I? Before it was so easy, like, this is what I do, these are my credentials. And actually a lot of what I spend my time doing now has nothing to do with my credentials or work or anything. But yeah, if we are going to go into that, I previously was a healthcare professional, and still am registered but don't practice, so I'm on maternity leave. I'm also a PhD student who studies workforce development in health and social care, and just trying to finish that off. Although I am on an intermission because I'm pregnant. But yeah, I guess that's me.
I love that so much. And to be fair, so the reason I wanted you specifically on the podcast is because, one, I feel like I watch your life and just go, oh my God, this just so resonates and it just makes sense. But two, I think especially in the whole context of being educated, living in a different country, with a partner, I know that, so you got married this year as well as you're having your baby, so you've gone through a lot of massive life changes that one, I find inspiring, but two, I can empathize with how stressful that is just from I feel a snippet of what you talk about, but then as you've talked about it and then gone into living it and then sat there oh my God, I think I've overestimated what I think I can handle. And I'm not saying that in a bad way of it's to put people off getting married, having kids, having a career, doing all that. But I think for me to see someone like you do it and then be honest about it, I'm having a lot more of informed decision, because I talk to my friends having kids and all that, but I feel like I'm having an informed discussion with G as my mind's changing, as I'm growing as a person, whatever. But then I'm like, this stuff is really hard. Adulting just doesn't get easy, does it?
Yeah. And it's just when you start to feel like you know everything and okay, I've had these 29 years of kind of assimilating to UK life or whatever as a first generation immigrant. Okay, I've got this job now. Okay, things are I've got my tactics to navigate all of this. And then all of a sudden, honestly, pregnancy, marriage, motherhood, it was just a different realm altogether. Yeah. And I feel like I'm in an entry-level position, having been made redundant from, like I would say, relatively senior position. And that's always how I describe my previous life. So yeah, and there has been a lot of reflection from my point of view of wow, some people who tried to tell me about this, I didn't have the ears to listen to it.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah. That's so interesting, and I've skipped a whole bit, so I'm going to come into this in the middle, because I think, so we normally start with the challenge or the tip of the week, and then in the middle we just ask how we actually do, and then we get to the end. But I was too excited, and yeah, I'm way too excited for this conversation, so we'll do all that in the middle. But I think you've got, you've touched on something of when people are giving you advice and you're kind of going, yeah, I'm listening, but you're not fully hearing until you're in that position. And I guess the reason that I love, because also like you've not introduced yourself as a creative. I know you as a creative,
Yeah.
and and a great creative at that. So even the whole, you're not just, you made maybe redundant from that whole aspect of life, but you've gone into this new aspect of life with that creative mind, but that creativity coming from such an authentic place that I guess when I'm talking about my thing of maybe I wasn't hearing people in the past, when I watch your content and I watch you guys talk about your lives and the things that you're dealing with, and then sat there, it's, I feel like I'm talking to a friend, even though we're not talking to each
Yeah.
other. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm listening to that and going, I should really hear this, because
Yeah.
I definitely know that I'm one of those people that, like my friend was saying to me, I went to see her in Barcelona, and her baby's going to be 1 in January, and she'd always been the whole like, we can have it all, and she was like, Chick, I'm being completely honest, we can't, like we can have it all, just not at the same time. We cannot have it all the way that we thought we could.
Yeah.
And that seems to be this whole thing that is just being reinforced by, I guess, the people that I choose to consume content from, the people around me, and so on. Because I think sometimes when I don't listen to people or hear people properly, it's because they've made life decisions that maybe I don't agree with. Would that be the
Yeah.
word? Or I'm just like, well, that wouldn't be me. Whereas,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, whereas actually,
Yeah.
they're like, but these are people that are my age, around my age, are making those life decisions I'm going to be making or wanted to make or nearly made quite like in the recent past. And then like you're living it. So why would I not listen?
Yeah, no, it is. And I think that's what always motivates me to make content. And just to touch back on what you said about not introducing myself as a creative, and interestingly, not just that, I feel like in the context of our conversation, it's crazy for me not to introduce myself as a creative, also talk about why we resonate in terms of our, maybe some of the things that we've gone through family wise, whatever. But
Yeah.
it's very interesting to me. I find it very difficult to acknowledge what I'm living right now. And I keep
Yeah.
myself hung up on, but yeah, I guess. So I make content online about my life in Canada, and also giving tips and tricks on just life in general. So I need to add that to
Yeah.
my ongoing bio, but I don't know why I find it so difficult. And it's funny that you picked up on that.
I think I'd be the same as you, because I see I'm an accidental influencer. I think when it comes to that whole being a creative, like, and I'm generalizing creative, because to me it's not just the influence you have. I love the style of content you create, and I love the topics that you touch on. So that's why I'm generalizing creative as a whole, because I think it's so multifaceted that if I was just to call you an influencer, just a content creator, I'd feel like I'm not giving you the props that you deserve. Because even on that side of it, we'll come back to like the whole like social media, positivity, negativity, all that side of it. But you've been through the good and the bad. You've seen what it's like to be on like that side of the internet that people I think just take for granted. Like they see you online and they're like, oh, sometimes you get free things, you get paid to do some things, but they forget that there's a human being behind that dealing with life, and you've got these people coming onto your pages that feel entitled as if like they know you and where you've come from and all these things. So even whenever I talk to anyone on this, or it's a creator that I'm talking to, I have to take that step back and go, I don't actually know you in person. I know what you've put out online, and that's, as someone that does this as well, that's only a snippet of life.
Yeah.
It's as much as I feel like, yeah, okay, I resonate with so much of what you put out, that is just a small section of your life, and we don't know how much of that you've put on or how little of it, and it's none of our business how much you do put on. But yeah, that's a whole other side of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And same goes for, you, I'm going to say you and G, because I follow all your accounts, watching you guys watch TV, telling me what to watch, like it is, these parasocial relationships are beautiful, actually,
Yeah.
and sometimes you almost see like a doppelganger of yourself in
Yeah.
somebody else who's grown up, and it just feels there's something very affirming about all the
Yeah.
decisions that you've made for yourself, because you're watching somebody else thrive, having had no contact with you, you don't know each other, but has
Yeah.
been through the same, and it's like 1 in a million. That's how I feel. Like when I found your face, that's how I felt. So yeah, I get it completely.
Oh, I love that so much. And do you know what? We're getting kind of, this is already like nearly halfway through. I think we're still going to go in a little bit longer. I'm going to push it.
Yeah.
But Okay, so what is your tip of the week or challenge of the week, and how are you actually doing?
So my tip of the week, and it's actually a video that's in my draft, is to anybody, but I think the girlies, let's never ever revel in somebody's downfall, like ever. And remember that, especially when we're dating or we're meeting new people, the way that those people speak about other people, that they don't want anything from, they feel like they can't really gain anything from, it's exactly the way they're going to speak about us when,
Yep.
our time with them or our utility to them has finished. So that's my tip of the week, to anybody, and I guess to myself moving forward as well. And then what was the second question?
How are you actually doing? So I know, like, people know I'm like, oh hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm fine, but how are you
Yeah.
actually doing?
So I think this week has been a good week.
Nice.
And for those of you who've been through pregnancy, you know what that means. It's just like a new symptom every week.
Oh,
But this week has been a really good week. And I feel good, and I feel like I'm starting to settle into my life here in Canada.
yeah,
And things are, I love the mundane. I love the mundane so much,
yeah,
as somebody who, grew up in a very chaotic environment. So that's what I chase. So I'm
yeah,
not chasing excitement. And yet, so for me, a good time is waking up, making my bed, partner going to work, me being at home. And we're starting to get there. We're starting to get into this nice, simple, soft, slow life with no hiccups.
oh,
And so I feel good.
oh, that's so good. I'm so glad to hear. Okay, how do you know what? So how I'm doing right now, like I don't know what the hell's going on this week. And I
Yeah.
posted a TikTok that for some reason it didn't get pushed to the For You page, but someone else did comment saying, I don't know what's happening with these retrograde, like Mercury retrograde, whatever else is going on. But mentally I think I'm struggling mostly with the person that people expect me to be. So at the moment, like in business, it's not just business, like within my team, the different levels of my team, within clients, within family, within friends. And I don't even know how much of this I should or need to talk about right now. But basically I made a decision to work with someone, and that decision was based off of a very good relationship previously, and it's ended up not going very well, and it's going to affect us moving forward. Now I don't know how it's going to affect us, but it's something that I'm just so uncomfortable with, because I've gone through that whole, like, like therapy and losing people out of your life, and I thought I was in this position of life where I was like, okay, the people that needed to go have gone, but now I'm like, what if this is going to be another person? And that's where I start, and that's why I was saying at the beginning that if I start crying, we're going to keep it moving, because I
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
feel like this today, recording this today with you, I also feel like that has weirdly been so spot on. And the day that I needed it, even the fact that like needed to rearrange times, and you were like, yeah, a bit earlier is fine. You are exactly what I needed, because it's been that reminder that even where I get into that mindset of, okay, I'm kind of used to, I'm settled in life and I know what's going on, maybe in my personal life with G, I am, but in everything else, as a businesswoman, as a creative, I'm growing, and I'm growing quite quickly and in a way that I guess I didn't see. And with that comes, I have to decide what type of businesswoman do I have to be. There are
Yeah.
people now that aren't going to like how I speak or the decisions that I make, because I can't people please for the sake of relationships. I have to be a businesswoman. And like, I've got a team that now rely on me to get paid, which is stress
Yeah.
on its own. But when things aren't getting done, I can't be like, oh, I don't want to have an awkward conversation, because ultimately it's going to affect the business, my team, and me and life. So I guess my challenge of the week is being able to, as much as I'm starting to separate me as a businesswoman and as a person and kind of figure that out, other people aren't. And
Yeah.
that's where I'm getting that challenge, and how to maybe have those conversations.
Yeah. And I completely appreciate that. And relationships with business work, whatever, can, when they go like this, that can be very, very complicated. My only, and sometimes this is the downfall of therapy, where you are so effective in protecting yourself that sometimes you think, oh my God, am I a monster? Am I the villain, going to be the villain in this person's story now? But one thing that I've learned from just being around people and having to make executive decisions is that when you don't make those executive decisions, people expect you to, nobody will thank you, in the sense that not even the person you're trying to protect in the end will thank you.
Yeah.
And I think that when you learn that after the fact, after you've been doing, gymnastics to try and protect that person's feelings, it hurts more than just being like, okay, this is just, it's completely not personal, full stop.
That's so true. And to be fair, it was really funny because I noticed that, especially like I don't know how you're coping with like being pregnant and away from, I suppose, your system back home. Because whenever stuff like this happens, straight away I'm like, I wish I could just go around to my brother's house. I could see my best friend, but these are all people that are now in another country. Like I called my dad and he didn't answer, and I was like, why is he deserting me? Because I think I got the advice from G, my brother, that I needed to hear, but there's just a level where it's like, these are the three important men in my life that make me feel calm. If I don't speak to all of them and they don't all tell me the same thing, because I knew what they were all going to say, and I knew all of them were going to say, leave it today and like, and then have the conversation tomorrow. I knew all that, but I spent hours crying. And then when my dad called me, I was like, oh, I'm better now. And yeah, you've told me what I needed to hear. And yeah, fine, thanks.
No, yeah. I mean, and I love that you have, you have that, but that's not something I've had the privilege of having.
Yeah.
And I'm sure my mum's going to watch this. And this is not in a way to, I don't know, to even, this is not a way to even talk badly or ill of my family. And as some of you might know, I make a lot of content, or I used to make a lot of content about the kind of tumultuous family dynamics that I've had with my parents. And so this is not something that I've had the privilege of being, for example, at university and being able to call back home and say, you know what, I've argued with a friend. What should I do, mum? And there are so many reasons for that. And so I love that you have that, but at the same time, I love and I envy that you have that. But at the same time, when you ask, like, how is it being here in Canada, being pregnant, going through all this, for me, unapologetically, and I'm sorry, mum, to say this, there is no difference if I was in Essex, where we were living, and my family's in the Northwest, than me being here in Essex County in Canada and my family being in the Northwest. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And it's not something I'm mad about. It's not something that I'm even like sad about, because over time you then find other ways to supplement that.
Yeah.
So the way I treat my friendships, the way I interact with, the way you interact with your partner or other people that you allow in your life, when you know that you don't have anybody else, you just call for pure emotional support. Different to if you can always fall back on your family. And I'm talking about emotional support and pastoral care. So that's just, it's not, it's something that doesn't exist for me, but that's great, because it's allowed me to be an upwardly mobile person without thinking. Allowed me to accelerate my career in a way where other people be like, oh no, but I can't move. It's never a thought. It doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Do you know what? I love even how you've broken it down, because one, being African children that are first-gen immigrants that have gone to therapy as women, and then being able to have these conversations, like you said, if your mum's going to watch this, I don't think my mum watches like my podcast or listens, which is completely fine. But like you're saying, you get to a level in life where you know what to expect from certain people. And even this year, like there are certain family members I've had to just go, do you know what? I love you, but again, you're not a person that I can rely on emotionally, physically, in all these aspects. I can't even have that conversation with some of the people that I've had to basically just go, not you. And with my mum, I have like, we talk about TikTok, and some of the ones that have blown up for me on TikTok have been when I talk about like dealing with African parents in therapy, and then it starts to blow up and you're like, oh my God, what have I done? Then you see all these people resonating and you're like, all right, I know it's making me uncomfortable and I hope it doesn't reach my parents, but I am glad I found that community, because I think people like you have taught me that it's okay to not have the relationship I thought I was going to have. And I think the reason that, like, my dad's not perfect either, and he doesn't like. I complain now because I just want one day a month with him where we can just talk about crap and I can get everything off. Because if I was to sit with him and he goes, "Okay, tell me about life or what's going on," give me a topic. It's not like that. That's not who we are as people. We we just start one topic and then an hour later you're going, oh my god, we've talked about this really deep stuff. And I
Yeah.
am really lucky that I've got him in that sense, but it doesn't mean that as I'm growing up, like I said to him recently, that you made a decision to have a child. I am your child and I have expectations for you when I was an adult and as your friend as well as your child. So if you can't give me what I need, I'm gonna like, you can't complain at how I then decide to treat you or treat our relationship and situation, which is a conversation I had with mum last year that she has struggled with, but I've then made an active effort to reevaluate and not like be like a wounded child, but reevaluate that relationship and just go, do you know what? It's not that they don't care or they're dealing with whatever they have been taught
Yeah.
to deal with life the way that they have, which you can appreciate, but sometimes it doesn't always help us.
Absolutely. And I think we definitely came to the same conclusion when it comes to our parents. I think so. I think, for a long time, especially as like a teenager, I was very upset, very wounded. And then I found my own coping mechanisms and the way that I would interact with people and where I would get my validation. And that was enough for me. But I think I made a video recently where I said it's the fact that later on, when we're both adults, when actually, you didn't, the expectations that a child has from their parents, you didn't meet those expectations, and that's okay because you were going through stuff. But now that we're both adults, you
Yeah.
expect me to empathize with you when you couldn't empathize with me when I was a child. That's one.
Yeah.
But also the things that you've come to collect in terms of, expectations with time, finances, there are things that unfortunately you didn't sow that seed 20 years ago. So
Yeah.
you're not in a position to come and collect with the amount of tenacity that you have. And that's where for us, that's when the conversations started happening and the actual fallout started, where it's kind of like, so all up until maybe I became a successful professional, we'd actually never had even any issue. But it was when it was this expectation of, oh, my friend's daughter has taken and then, and I'm a very matter of fact person. I'm like, yeah, but your friend's daughter, that daughter had all these things. So
Yeah.
yeah, maybe she feels she owes that to her parents. I didn't have those things, so I don't feel like I owe it.
Yeah.
And then there's the comparison game. I was like, oh, if you
Yeah.
want to, I'll compare too. And that's where, and it was really difficult for me. And at some point, I had to stop myself to say, I've had the privilege, thanks to my parents, to be able to have therapy, to be able to do all these things. And I have to remember that, yes, they're my seniors, like we've talked about this before, but we are not emotionally the same age. We're not emotional mates. I may be more emotionally intelligent when it comes to things than my parents, and it's almost like a double wound for them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a challenge, but definitely empathizing with them has helped, rehumanizing them and getting to know a little bit about their upbringing
Yeah.
help. But also these boundaries need to be solid. Yeah.
Honestly, like you waver a little bit once and you're like, how did I find myself here?
Yeah.
That's so funny. Right. So leading on from actually that whole, I feel like you've broken it down in a way that anyone that gets it gets it. If you don't get it, you don't. And sorry, but look at both of our TikToks. Just scroll through, you will find loads of examples. But I guess, like you say, like this year you have got married, you are having a baby. How are you finding making decisions and keeping those boundaries without making people feel like you're gonna like you're letting them down? Because obviously, like even your wedding wasn't, I guess, what you expected it was going to be a few years ago, and even decisions you're making now are based off of the fact that you have your own family now and you have to put them first. And not that anyone else doesn't matter, but yeah, what
Yeah.
is that like?
So that has been challenging. Less so with my own family, but now that I'm part of a new family who have their own ways and that they have their own expectations, and now they've inherited this daughter-in-law who and who like, you know, when I enter your life, like that's the type of person I am. And unfortunately, although I feel like I have a fun persona online, and I am fun, but I'm not really, I'm not a person you have fun with. Unfortunately, in people's lives, I often come into people's lives and I'm the first person to have ever showed them the consequences of their actions. And that's very challenging for me, but also it's very challenging for people who meet me in their adult life.
Yeah.
So that has been really challenging. But the most challenging thing is that I found is trying to find acceptance in my new family, while also not, but there are certain boundaries that I've put up that I'm not willing to put down just for that acceptance.
Yeah.
There are certain boundaries that I have with my own parents that I'm not willing to just punish my parents, but now put those boundaries down just to have acceptance. So it's been a massive learning curve for everybody involved, you know, for my parents, my in-laws, and people, yes, absolutely have exercised their disappointment in some of the decisions myself and my husband have made. So for example, my wedding, for those of you who don't know, so I got engaged last November, and my partner is like of Polish descent, but in Canada. So he has family in Canada and then in Poland. And then I'm Zimbabwean in England. So we were just in England, in this part of England alone. So it wouldn't have been practical for us to have a wedding at that point. We were like, okay, well, we'll move to Canada and then I'll start planning then. I ended up moving to Canada. And then when we got to Canada, you know, I'm like speaking to people, seeing like where they're at, like what's, you know, there was a consultation phase, right? So this is the consultation phase of like, okay, this is the wedding. And people were not, what can I say? People were not, and this is everybody involved, everybody you'd think you would consult when you're planning a wedding. People were not on that gear. So people were not on that gear of, for whatever reasons, right? We can't go into all of them, but for whatever reasons. But I think what people didn't expect is that the consultation phase ended. I made it me and my husband made our decision and we executed. So then when it came to the execution of our wedding, which was like, okay, I don't really care about wedding. I really don't care about a wedding. We've got, you know, a good budget. My husband doesn't care about a wedding. And then I'm pregnant now. So I'm like 5 weeks pregnant. We're like, we want to get married. That's the most important thing to us. So when it came to the execution phase, a lot of people had things to say. But again, and this is where we get into, unfortunately, God has given me this responsibility of always being the person who shows people that your actions have consequences when you're dealing with me. So then we're having people making these comments about, oh no, but what this, and I'm like, do you remember on these 3 days when I came to you and I asked you, and do you remember what you said to me? And these were very difficult conversations to have with people, because I think it like, you know, they really got a sense of who I am and what I'm about. And the reason I am like that is because I feel that, you know, we talked about strained relationships with our parents. The biggest reason, when I look back objectively, I feel like our relationship was strained, or my relationship was strained with my parents, is that my parents, they had their own wound with their own parents that they were fighting hard to fix at the expense of their children, at the expense of what they're doing now, at the expense of their own future. And that's one thing I was never going to do. But equally, I was also always going to give people a chance to consult during the consultation phase. But if you didn't have anything to say then, and then we're now executing, like, I will remind you that you will give me an opportunity. And like, yeah, so you can imagine it wasn't a very popular decision, but people get over it, you know. Get over it.
That's so true. And I think that's one of the things that I resonate with you the most, because I think I've never seen someone so like me that I've looked at in such a positive light. Because I guess whenever I have been that person that goes, okay, but on this day, I did talk to you about X, Y, Z. Like, I put up a TikTok recently where I was like, I now treat our family group chat as if it's a work email, because there've been too many times where, I don't know, like I do, like, these are like jokes and whatever, but it's just my way to be like, again, separating the whole like what I need right now, who I am, and whatever, and the fact that I love my family so much, there has to come a point where I have to protect my peace. So my way of protecting my peace is by going, okay, we've had this conversation. This is what I said I'm going to do. This is what you said you're going to do. And then if they don't do it and something happens, I go, there you go. Like a few days ago, my mum was like, "Oh, you didn't mention something." I was like, "Actually, yeah, you're right. I didn't mention it, and that's on me, and I can't be mad."
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so difficult, and it does make you it doesn't make you a very popular person. However, the good thing is, like my family especially know exactly how to talk to me, and know that there's always going to be a consistency in terms of how we discuss issues. And that's something that I severely lacked and I yearned for. And I think why I chose the careers that I did, especially like academia, healthcare, and then went into policy and then my PhD. So it's a shame that people are having to meet me later on in life and they're like, oh, this is, it's a shame, but people get over it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that's something that I'm definitely like, I know you put up a post recently where you're talking about when people are being microaggressive or racist, rather than addressing the racism or the microaggression, address the behavior. And I watched that video and I was like, oh my God, this is so on point, because there are certain things I've avoided talking about recently online or even within like family and friends, because especially the one thing I struggle with is how family see me most of all, because I think I used to have this vision of what family looks like. I put a lot of people on a pedestal, and as I've got older, those people have kind of just dwindled down, and I'm then left with this whole, oh my God, what is the meaning of my life and how I see family and whatever. But then I love the way that, like you said, you've gone into academia and policy and all that, but in that, you might not choose to finish all of that, but you are teaching a generation of young Black women, especially, but Black women, young women, women in general, also how to communicate some of those things. Because my thing is, I hate being perceived in a way where I'm letting someone down because I am a people pleaser and it hurts me so much. But like you're saying, at some point, people also get over it and get used to that. And whilst you're in that situation, it's so hard to be like, oh, everything's going to be fine. Like, it's always fine, because it just feels, especially if you're such an empath, it feels like the world's consuming you.
Absolutely. It does feel all consuming. And I think especially with that content, so I actually started my social media journey on Instagram, and oh my God, I went in hard with very little reward. But I went in hard, and a lot of it was career related, and it was career related content. And especially when it came to racism and race-related issues, was something that I used to always steer away from, because it is so prevalent, unfortunately, in the NHS, just because of the demographic of people who work as like, for example, nurses, doctors, and how the workforce trends are. And one of the things is about not addressing not using the term racism, and actually, get into the bad behavior, is because honestly, most of the time, it makes everybody's number one objective to prove that that person isn't racist. And it's not just within racism, it's even when you say that somebody, was sexually assaulted. You watch how they're interviewed, you watch how people, and you're like, are you sure that that's what happened? Everyone then forgets, like, if you use the sexual assault example, forgets that this person might have spiked the person might have lied to the person might have got them even more drunk, the person might have done all these things, all these individual objectively bad behaviors all go down the drain. And now the focus is, was it rape, as it's defined by law? And I think it's almost like an interesting tactic, even, and especially when we start introducing things like zero tolerance policies, which actually backfire because the stakes are so high. The stakes of zero tolerance are so high that people are like, oh my God, like, are we really going to fire this person? So then it becomes about protecting the aggressor. So, when we talk about challenges of this week, one of my biggest challenges every week is about what content I should be putting out there, because I feel like my head is so full. But at the same time, like I'm talking about babies, racism, family. Oh my gosh, yeah.
You are a personal brand. That is it. You are the niche, and this is what we
Oh,
want.
yeah. You helped me with your, especially when you did your series of I think you did 30 days of like content
Yeah,
created. I was just eating it all up because I think sometimes being nicheless can it's difficult.
yeah,
Yeah, it is.
yeah. It really is. All right, so we're wrapping up now, and like I said, this is definitely going to be a more than a one-parter. But it was just really nice to also introduce you because obviously, like the people that I choose on here, because I resonate with you in some kind of way, and I think the world needs to see you, know you, learn from you, and so on. So we'll end on win of the week. What is your win of the week been?
Oh. So okay, I purposely didn't read all the thingies because I wanted to be as authentic as possible. What win have I had?
I'll go first, and then I'll give you a bit of time.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I think my win is just carrying on. Like
Mm,
not like I cancelled. I was supposed to go out yesterday, and I'd paid to go to this event, and it was for property, and this is like my next stage of life. And then
mm.
me and my friend, like when your friend doesn't message in, like you are not messaging, and I was like, I
Yeah.
know we're such similar people that I knew straight away this isn't going to be an issue, and we talked about it. We both felt exactly the same. So whilst I cancelled yesterday, I am going to something tonight, and we're then going to Dublin tomorrow. So I'm not cancelling those. So I think my win is just I'm carrying on. I'm not giving up.
Yeah. Okay, so I think I would say my win then would be I'm really happy with how all my relationships have been this week.
Yeah,
I think when you're dealing with a lot of people, family,
yeah,
whatever, it's like every other week it's something with somebody, you know?
yeah.
But yeah, I'm really happy with how my relationships have been this week.
Oh, I love that so much. Well, let's hope it carries on.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, we'll link all of your socials so people can follow you. But yeah, everyone subscribe, like
Yeah.
follow us both on absolutely everything because yeah, you'll keep seeing like cross. And I love how we stitch each other as well because sometimes I
Oh,
feel
I know.
like you said when your mind keeps going, you've got all this stuff you want to post, and I come across one of yours, and I'm like, I've saved so many to go. I'll come back
Yeah.
and post this one.
Oh, I know. I'm so bad with the saving. And then I'm like, okay, I should actually go back, like, and
Yeah.
comment so they know I'm not just doing like a weird file on them or something, like some weird audit. But no, thank you so much for having me. And I'm looking forward to part two because and I feel like it needs to be ultra specific because
Yeah.
we have so much. Yeah.
Yeah, this one was nice and generic first, and we can pick stuff going forward. I really like the generic stuff first because I think when we have this type of conversation, and that's why I don't give too much of an idea into what we're going to talk about because I think conversation flows and you hear all this interesting stuff about someone. So yeah, that's the point of the first one, and then yeah, we'll plan the next ones.
Excellent. Thank
Thanks so
you.
much.
Have a good evening.